Yeah, sure. I'm just gonna refresh the channel here. Yeah, sure. I'm just gonna refresh the channel here. Perfect. Yeah, I can hear myself there. So I'm just going to post it. Yeah, sure. I'm just gonna refresh the.
So we will be sharing the YouTube.
Perfect. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm just gonna disconnect myself from the YouTube channel, but just a second.
Hi, everyone. It's Alka.
Hi, Alka. You're on air now.
Hi, everyone. It's Alka. Vandana, you'll put up the PowerPoint when you're ready, right?
Sure.
Vandana,
Alka, are you on the Hangout or just via YouTube or audio?
hi, Kat. I'm just on the Hangout.
Hi, all. I think we can get started.
How much time do I have for my talk?
You have more than 45 minutes for your talk.
Okay, including questions, right?
Including questions, and even we can extend the time if
Okay.
required.
It might be a bit short just because I'm jet lagged and tired.
Sure.
So are we starting with Tanya or Alka?
We're
Alka.
starting with Alka.
How long is Alka's talk?
Alka's talk is around 40 to 45 minutes. 40 minutes, we can say.
Okay. I might eat breakfast while she's doing that.
Yeah. So I am on YouTube channel as well. We have the guests increasing. So we'll start off with the introduction in another 2 minutes. We'll only wait for 2 minutes and we will get started.
Vandi, can you see how many people do we have on the YouTube channel?
5 at the moment.
I think that's the 5 of us, isn't it?
Yes. That's 5 of us in the moment, and I will just share it.
Yeah, maybe let's just wait a couple of minutes for more people to join.
Yeah. And then I'll put everyone on the mute. I believe we can get started now, and the members keep on increasing as and when we are going.
How many people do we have on the YouTube channel?
8 people, and they will keep on increasing. So we'll just start off with a brief introduction of OWASP, and then they keep on joining, because Alka's session will start in another 10 minutes, and I'll make sure that that keeps on going and people are joining. Great. So I'll start off with a brief introduction about what Women in AppSec is all about. This is for anyone who believes that diversity is important to the success of any organization, as well as for the women looking to learn more about AppSec, or who wants to make career connections with the like-minded people. This includes female undergraduates and graduate students, instructors, and professionals who are dedicated to information security or application development. Today we have 2 amazing speakers, Alka Bhargava and Tanya Janca, who will be sharing their expertise in information security, and their topics are really amazing, and we are really looking forward to it. We will also be sharing what we do as part of Women in AppSec, and how you can contribute towards Women in AppSec. this is not just the only community that we have on the call. Today we have InfoSec girls, cyber security girls, and we have women from across the globe. Talk about US, UK, Africa, India, everywhere we have the women on the call today. And we will have question and answer sessions after every talk. So we can post the questions on the comment section, and the speakers would be able to take it up as soon as the session is over. I will also share certain information about what we have done in the past as part of a Women in AppSec community, wherein we have done certain sessions for women in colleges, wherein we have given them a hands-on session on where to start off with application security, or where to start off with the security. We've also given sessions in certain conferences just for women, so that we can have more women speakers come on and share their expertise, because there are a lot of amazing women who wants to be part, but they're just looking for a platform. So now, as part of multiple communities here, this is a platform where we all can come and speak and share the expertise which we have. Now, I will just pass it on to I'll pass it on to Tanya and Alka, so that they can share more about their experiences. And then we will start off with the session with Alka. Alka, over to you. Alka, can you hear me?
If she's not ready, I could go if you want. Alka, are you there? I can't hear you now, Vandana, you're mute.
Sorry. I think we can get started with your introduction. Meanwhile, Alka, I'll just check with Alka. She's ready, she said. So we'll just, yeah.
Let Alka go.
Perfect.
Maybe let's start with Tanya, because I think Alka is having some issues with her audio.
Okay.
Sure. Can you make me a presenter?
Sure, I will just make you a presenter. 1 minute.
You're muted.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Let's get the show on the road.
Great.
Sorry about that. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about the importance of infrastructure security knowledge for application security specialists. I know for me, as well as for many people, application security is one of the most exciting areas. It's where all the action is. Pen testing is one of the most glamorous jobs, I think, in information security and applications, web applications, mobile applications. That's really where so much of the energy is. And so I'm going to just bring it back to some basics for everyone, because I think that if we have a good grounding in infrastructure security, that allows us to be even better application security specialists, whether it's being an architect, a pen tester, whatever niche in the field that you choose. You'll always have a really good grounding if you know various aspects of information security. And when you're young and starting out in your career, you don't often have that. So there's lots of ways that you can learn it as you go. When I was starting out, everyone started doing tech support, whether it was for software or whether it was in a company doing desk side support. We all sort of paid our dues that way. And I found it to be invaluable experience. But now I think security and IT have so many niches that you really have to cater your education and really focus on one niche that you want to be part of. So we find a lot of people focusing on cloud or focusing on pen testing, ethical hacking, whatever it may be. So before I start, I just want to say thanks again to OWASP WIA, especially Vandana for asking me, Kat Cancelado for getting me involved, Zoe Braderman for her leadership, and Owen Pendlebury, who is a big supporter of WIA. And then I really want to thank InfoSec Girls for having us. It's a really great opportunity to be able to connect with you guys and encourage you. And some of us didn't have that when we were starting out. And I hope that, I can be part of giving you guys that mentorship and that, view from what it looks like 20 years down the line. And then I want to thank Tanya for going after me, because I'm really afraid if I went after you, everyone would fall asleep. Vandana, can we go to slide 3, please?
Sure. 1 second. I will just screen share. Let me know once you're able to see my screen.
So the word DevSecOps or variations thereof have been really popular for the last few years. DevOps, SecOps, and now I think we have AppSecOps as a legitimate part of that sort of nexus. And I think I would even go further and say if you're an AppSec specialist and you spend some time in the trenches doing development, there's nothing better than that. That's pretty obvious. But if you want to be a full stack application security specialist, you also really just need to understand enterprise security, basic infrastructure security. And if you don't have, experience in it, you can certainly read about it. You can learn from colleagues. And one of the things that I did along the way in my career is I made lateral career moves so that I could learn a certain area thoroughly. And then I came back to my main area of interest, which might have been security architecture, which might have been various things along the way. Certainly application security was one of them. So I would really encourage you guys to really round yourselves out as much as possible. Now, you must be wondering, especially the young ladies who are in college, you must be wondering, what do I need to learn from the infrastructure security realm to really help me with AppSec? And basically, the answer is you can start anywhere. Vandana, could you go to slide 4? So if you're offered an entry-level job that doesn't seem super directly related to information security, just trust that you can get there from anywhere, because everything is related to information security. If you get a job being an Active Directory administrator and just creating accounts all day, just as an entry-level job, that's a perfect place to start. Anywhere that you start, you can learn from, and you can get to the areas that you're interested in from there. You don't have to start right exactly where you want to be. So I hope that offers comfort to those who are anxious about finding just the right entry-level position, just the right company. It doesn't matter. You can proceed as you want to, just start somewhere. So we have, can everyone see our application security goddess who knows everything, who has her hands in a little bit of everything? I think you guys are muted. Okay.
Wonderful image. I love it. Thanks, Alka.
Okay, good. Can we go to 5, Vandana? All right. So there are some domains that are very critical and very directly related to application security. And everyone here, I'm sure, is very familiar with the OWASP Top 10. If you go through that, you'll see that it connects to every domain in information security, from networking to database to development lifecycle to configuration to vulnerability management to threat management. And then it's connected to all the tools of those various areas as well. And if you, for instance, if you're a pen tester and say you're just starting out and you run a pen test, you run a dynamic application pen test on a web application, and you look at the report, just the canned report that comes out, you're going to see a variety of vulnerabilities in that application. And dollars to donuts, you'll probably see every single one of these areas represented. You'll see configuration vulnerabilities. You'll see potential SQL injection, that's database security, as well as SDLC. You will see privileged access, execution vulnerabilities. You'll see plain old patches that are missing. You'll see things from the network. You'll see a little bit of all of this. And to really be able to understand what you're looking at and the implications of it, and to be able to assign risk to it, you kind of need to understand how those areas would be affected by that vulnerability. So if your canned report says, this is CVE X, Y, and Z, this patch is missing, and the canned report assigns it a medium vulnerability, if you have that knowledge, you can sometimes say, okay, yes, this is a medium vulnerability, but because your environment has such and such situation with the database, we're going to upgrade it to high. Or because you have such and such mitigation, because you have a web app firewall and you have IDS IPS, you have SIEM, you have excellent security monitoring, we'll downgrade it to low because it's unlikely that this would be exploited and wouldn't be caught by your systems. So, in the example of a pen tester, it allows you to be a really, really good pen tester. And so those of you who are working in application security, and if you're not the manager of a group that does pen testing, just know that your manager is going to have to defend those findings to your client, whether that's an internal group within your company or an external client. Whatever the situation is, you're going to have to be able to defend what you find through pen testing. So the more you know and the more intelligent you can make your report, the more customized you can make your report, the more that you will really serve your client well. And the more that you will take pride in your job, I think. There's nothing better than being able to add a little extra knowledge and provide some advice to a developer or a manager or a systems admin, to be able to say, hey, if you install this patch, not only will you close this vulnerability, but you will be, supported by Microsoft or supported by whoever. Because right now you're not being supported because you're not at the right patch level. So it's a really nice thing. Can anyone, can we unmute? Can anyone name all the OSI layers? Besides the experts? Okay. So usually when we're doing pen testing and application security, we're concerned with everything from layer 4, which is the transport layer, which is TCP/IP, through layer 7, which is the application layer, right? And this is the reason I'm mentioning this is because we have this thing called middleware that is a really important part of application security. You don't have an application that just makes requests to a database, right? You always have something in between, whether it's some sort of authentication mechanism or a big technology like Oracle or SailPoint, or a homemade one, or Active Directory, whatever it might be. You have something that will allow you to authenticate, something that will say you're authorized to have this information. You can look at it, but you can't do anything to it, et cetera, et cetera. So Vandana, if you could go to the next slide. Actually, if you go to slide 7, please. This is an example of an N-tier architecture. So middleware would be the thing that comes between the application server, whether it's Apache or whatever, or any other web server. It's the thing that comes in between and goes back through to the data tier. And ideally, you want to have it as a layer of defense. And you also want to have it as a way to mediate access, right? So you make a call from the web server to the middleware layer. It figures out who you are. The call's made by a service account. You're authenticated, and then you pass the request through to the database tier, and you're authenticated again, and you basically go through a firewall sandwich here. And this is where it's really important to know network architecture. If you can't look at a network diagram as a security architect, you're going to have trouble advising the development team on what could go wrong, and you're going to have trouble advising the organization that you work for on how to secure their network. So okay, now if we go back to 6, Vandana. So for application architects, it's really, really important to be able to look at a network diagram and be able to see how data flows through the various parts of an application, from the app server to the middle layer back to the database. And sorry, we'll just go to slide 7, Vandana. So if you are an AppSec architect and you can do all of these different things, you're basically a rare animal. And I made the comparison with a purple unicorn. If you can understand enterprise security and information security, if you can understand SDLC, if you have a little bit of programming knowledge and you can do development and do static code analysis, and if you understand basic security domains so that you can write policy and know process and advise on technical standards for things like hardening of an OS, hardening of an application, it's a really, really valuable skill to have. And the way that you get there is by having a variety of experience and knowing about infrastructure security as well as AppSec. Okay, Vandana, if we could go to slide 10, please. Sorry, slide 9. So database security, the database, of course, that's the crown jewel, the most valuable thing that the most valuable data asset that any given organization will have, and it has to be protected. You want it to be protected by a middleware tier in between the DMZ and the database tier. You want it to be protected by good access controls. You want it to be protected by encryption, and a lot of the regulatory standards will require database encryption. And I have seen over the years database administrators and IT managers really struggle with how do we encrypt a database at the field level and then still have performance. And it's a perennial problem that is there. Sometimes the solution is to just encrypt the entire hard drive where the database lives. But then, there's an issue of where do you keep the keys? And there's all kinds of problems with other people who are going to have access to the OS being able to then access the database. Another problem in development that happens is that especially in a very agile environment, you'll have people who are developers actually doing production support. So they have a new version of the application that's released. there's a problem that happens. The person who knows the application best and can fix it on the fly is the developer. But your application holds critical information, personal and private data, medical information, financial information, and your customers want to know that you are not sharing that with anyone that doesn't on it. You're sharing it only on a need to know basis, and that development and production support are separated by good role-based access. So these are the kinds of really tough problems faced by security folks, AppSec folks, IT managers in terms of database security. It's really important to understand so that you can advise developers, you can advise architects, you can advise IT people, DBAs on how to secure their databases, how to build an app that will make calls in the right way, how to make sure that, what's the number one vulnerability in the OWASP top 10 for the last 15 years? It's injection, right? So database security is what's behind that SQL injection vulnerability, right? It has to be a huge concern. It has to be protected. You can't have a development scenario where people are asking a DBA, oh, can you give me this chunk of the database so that I can do testing on it? You have to sanitize the data. You have to make sure that you start with a clean set of systems when you promote an application from development to staging to production. There's all kinds of ways that having database knowledge is really helpful for an AppSec person. Slide 10. Okay, so we're getting into some really, really boring housekeeping parts of IT security, but they're so important. Configuration and change management. Now, if you're a brand new young person who's really loving application security and ethical hacking, the word change management and configuration management might make your eyes glaze over, but it's the difference between an application being hackable or not. If you do not have your OS hardened, if you don't have all the ports closed that need to be closed, you're leaving it open. I think, application security specialists understand this because they do this when they're hacking. They know, the first thing you do is a port scan, right, to see what's listening. And it's really good to spend time actually working on incident management and working in a SIEM because you'll see the activity on the other side. So you'll see live activity. And if you look at activity on a SIEM, one of the things that you have to filter out as false positives every day is people trying to get to port 21 for FTP. That's the first place they'll start, right? So it's really important to have change management and configuration management. Nobody just puts a virtual machine up on the network without having it be a standardized, hardened configuration, because you're really leaving the entire network vulnerable if you don't do that. There's all kinds of ways that this plays out. You could have a scenario where somebody makes an unauthorized change on a server, and in a big enterprise environment, let's say that you have, X amount of application servers in one data center and X amount in another data center. If somebody goes and randomly makes changes on some of the servers in the second data center without having that go through proper change management and informing all the stakeholders, and let's say your application goes down and you have to now function from the second data center, it's not going to work because that configuration is different. I have seen in the past somebody put one antivirus on application servers in one data center and a different one on application servers in another data center. Now, luckily, this was found through a tabletop disaster recovery test, but that pretty much made the whole system fail because it wasn't exactly alike. You were not just going from one system to an identical system. So it's really important to have people not just running around making changes without informing everyone, not having a record of that, not having a QA of the changes, all of that stuff, which, is so boring, especially to people who are in an agile environment and They want to go from point A to point B and make the new widget, but it's really important to stop and do it in an organized way. And you can tell I'm kind of a waterfall person by my comments. And I'll admit I am, because I think, it's really, really challenging to insert security gates into an agile scrum, right? It really all has to be front loaded in the design. You really have to do careful data flow, careful mapping of, what's going to go from where to what and through what account. And you really have to do the design in excruciating detail in an agile development environment. Whereas with waterfall, you have gates throughout. You'll have a security gate at the design phase. You'll have one at the application phase. You'll do static testing. You'll have one at the QA phase. You'll do regression testing in QA, and then you'll do pen testing after it's staged. And for a security person, that's a more comforting model. I know for developers, for lots of reasons, they prefer agile. They don't want to have something to be going through, 6 weeks of approval without being able to do it and get into the next cycle. But these are really important things to understand, and you can't understand them until you do these other functions in an enterprise environment. And so this is why I say just start anywhere in your security career and just learn, and then get to the area that you want to be in, because everything that you learn in other areas of security will inform and make you a better specialist. So Vandana, if you could go to slide 11, please. Patching. It's the most painful job to do in information security. Vulnerability management is the name of what that profession is. And it's literally the one most important thing that you can do. And those of you who do pen testing, you'll see, patches missing as an item that comes up over and over on your pen test reports. And really, for a company or any organization, if you haven't defended against vulnerabilities that are already known, then what are you going to tell your clients if there's a breach, right? It's really that simple. So patching is a super important thing. If you have an opportunity to work within a vulnerability management team at some point in your career, it's really good to learn the tools that they use. It's really good to learn Microsoft tools like SCCM, and security tools like Beyond Trust that help patch large organizational systems. It will really inform the way you think about security, the way that you talk to a system administrator, giving them a pen test report or vulnerability management report, and the way that you can actually influence people will be really informed by having that kind of experience. And again, I mentioned earlier, if you get a chance to work on incident management or work on implementing a SIEM, it's an amazing experience to have, because you really see how important monitoring and logging is. And if you only look at it from an AppSec perspective, you'll see how important it is to have good audit logging in your application, and to have that be security oriented. And then you'll see how useful that is in a situation where you have a breach and you're trying to do correlation. No matter how great of a SIEM you have, you always have to have the human ability to do correlation. Like, okay, we have, this malware on this segment, and we see this port being hit over here, and then this weird thing is happening, and now we have this outage. Do we think it's really an infrastructure outage, or could it be a cyber outage? Those are all the kinds of things that, if you know about the back end of things, it really allows you to be a better AppSec specialist. Vandana, number 12, please. So that's really my message here. Don't be afraid of doing things that are not as exciting as the ultimate thing that you want to do in your career, because those will be good building blocks for getting to where you want to get to. And also when you get there, you will know so much and you'll really have well-rounded knowledge, and you'll be that much better of an application security specialist. Whether you're doing architecture, pen testing, development, whatever it may be, you'll be much better off as a well-rounded security person. And I think we're all in this field because we're curious. We want to know how the world works. We want to know how technology works. I think information security is endlessly fascinating. I think it's a great adventure to have in life, to be in this field. And it's a great career if you want to keep on learning. And you can't go wrong with diversifying your skills. So that's what I have to say to you guys. And I'm happy to listen to any questions. Vandana, you might have to help me because I've got the YouTube closed for the moment.
Sure. Let me just check the questions. I think we don't have any questions at the moment on the YouTube channel. Do we have any questions from the people who are on the GChat?
Okay, thank you so much. I think we're on to Tanya now.
Hi, everyone. Hi, how's it going? Hi. Good. Could you make me presenter?
Please? Yes, you are a presenter. Let me just stop the sharing.
And then how do I share in this? Because I've never, I haven't used this platform before.
Okay, let me just check. Okay, here, do you see an option to screen share?
There's me, and I can mute, or I can show my profile.
Present to everyone.
Okay, I got it. Well, good. Hey, who sees my screen? Who sees insecurity and information technology? Who sees that?
I can see that.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to start. If there are questions, unless they're imperative, if you could keep them till the end, because I can't see the chat because I'm presenting. That would be great. Okay, hi everyone, I'm Tanya Janca. Thank you for coming onto the internet to join myself and all of the Women in AppSec group so that I could give you a little talk called Insecurity and Information Technology. I'm Tanya Janca. Okay, so who's seen this screen? Robin asks, how do I fix this security bug? And then Batman tells him, you should know. And the first time someone did a vulnerability assessment of one of my apps, there was no slapping, there was no physical violence, but I got this automated report from the security team. They had bought some sort of tool and they said, you know, you have all this stuff wrong with your app. And I said, oh my gosh, you know, what does this mean? Like, can you help me? And they said, you should know. And I was lost. It took me forever. I had to spend a lot of quality time with Google in order to figure out how to fix all these things, what they meant. And then I sent it back to them. They ran the tool again. It found other things. I ended up having to go through 3 times. And at the end, I was like, you know, it was really hard. That took a long time. And the security person said, basically, if I was a good software developer, that I would never have had any vulnerabilities in the first place. And now that, you know, if we fast forward a few years, I became a web application penetration tester, and finding vulnerabilities in software was my full-time job. And then I know now that that person so long ago, he he had no idea what that report meant. He had no idea whatsoever. And that's why he acted like that. Instead of admitting that he didn't know, he decided he would take his insecurity out on me and push me away. And his reaction made me feel super insecure. And then I just hid from the security team as much as I possibly could from then on. And none of that solves anything. And that's why today I want to talk to you about insecurity in information technology. Let's talk about the brief "This is me" slides. We do these slides to show off in hopes that you listen to the rest of our talk, to impress you with our credentials. So this is me. Sometimes this is me. I'm Tanya Janca, and on the internet, people call me She Hacks Purple, because I am a purple teamer. I work for this little startup. You might have heard of us. We're called Microsoft. And I'm something called a cloud developer advocate. And right now you're probably like, what the heck does that mean? It means that I do a lot of weird stuff. I help developers use our security features, and I change our products. Like, I help get feedback, and I try to make things easier to secure. And I do security research like this talk and then share it with the community. That's basically my job. So basically, I do my hobby and get paid. I'm an application security evangelist, but not like this guy, more like this guy. And I'm wildly obsessed with OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. And I'm sure the women from Women in AppSec have already told you, but we are the largest non-biased, vendor-neutral source of information on application security that is free. Basically, experts from all over the world want to help you make more secure software, and I and the women that run WIA are all part of this, and we would love it if you were a part of this. Okay, continue, Tanya. I have a project for OWASP. It's called DevSwap, where I try to add security to DevOps, and I have been coding for a really long time, and I want the easiest way to do whatever it is that you're doing with technology to be the most secure way to do it. I don't want security to be so hard, and that's why I give these talks. So with that, let's actually do the talk. Let's do this. Okay. I love memes. So the developers didn't implement any of the security fixes. Don't worry, they'll do it in the next release. And then Johnny Depp hugs the child because they both know that's not true. So what do developers do that makes security feel insecure, right? Because they do a lot of things. They don't ask security teams advice when they should, in our opinion, that they should. And then they do things like write their own crypto instead of using the security controls because they don't want to talk to us. Clearly, that's less than ideal. Sometimes you give a bunch of advice to them. You say, I really need you to fix this, and they don't, because they don't understand the risks, and they make you feel like what you have to say isn't important. Sometimes they make us feel like chopped liver because they hire outside consultants instead of us. Sometimes they don't enable us to do security testing. They don't give us time. And just not involving us when security things happen, not trusting us. Okay, so what does the security team do to developers? Well, sometimes they send them a 500-page report from an automated tool, and they don't read it first. Nothing makes you feel good like a developer, like receiving 500 pages of bugs. Sometimes they don't give usable security advice. So you ask for help with something, and then instead of them answering your question, they send you a link to NIST or ITSG33 or some crazy, huge, giant website. And it's like, no, I can go search a Google search too and put the first link into an email. Like, I needed your expertise. And it feels like a brush off for developers. Sometimes they act like a gate, or it feels like they do. And sometimes, as we saw in the first slide, when they reveal security issues to developers, sometimes they can make them feel less than fully competent. In my opinion, all of this behavior creates friction between the two teams, and it creates insecurity in people about how they do their jobs. And when I was researching this talk, the whole reason this came up is because my dad said to me, Tanya, it's 2016. Why can't we make secure software yet? Could you just get on that? Yes, Dad. I'll try to fix that up for you right now. And I looked into it and I saw like just repeated behavior in office after office, like all the places I consult. And this friction between the two teams, like between security and all the teams, really, it just makes people feel really insecure. So then I started searching for and doing research for this talk, and it turns out that feeling job insecurity leads to really predictable bad behavior. And so let's talk about that bad behavior and how I believe it causes insecure software. So what type of bad behavior do people have reliably when they feel job insecurity? Deviant behavior. So if you've just created a bunch of really nice processes you want everyone to follow, if someone's feeling really insecure, they might deviate from those processes. Moral disengagement. Do you want someone with flexible morals in charge of your secrets? Reduce job involvement. An uninspired IT department is not going to do a fantastic job of, again, protecting your secrets, protecting your assets, and protecting your people. Risk-taking behavior. I feel like because we're on a security track here, that I probably don't need to explain that risk-taking behavior is not ideal. A reduction of organizational citizenship behavior. This is something where I'm going to explain this one. Basically, it's positive workplace activity. So let's say you are in the kitchen and you are pouring yourself a cup of coffee and you spill a little bit on the counter and you realize no one else is in the room, so no one saw you. If you have good organizational citizenship behavior, you will immediately wipe it up, right? And then while the paper towel is in your hand, you might just like wipe the rest of the counter if there's water on it, because this is your kitchen, right? Because you work here and you are invested. But if you have a lack of organizational citizenship behavior, you're going to leave that coffee on the counter because you don't care, because you aren't invested, because this isn't your kitchen, this is their kitchen. And I don't know if you can imagine that person. They're not going to work all night trying to fix a bug for you. That person isn't going to go the extra mile and like run all of their tests again to make sure they caught every last thing, right? This isn't a person that is going to get the absolute best job done for you that they are capable of doing. And in my opinion, all of this negative behavior leads to insecure software. This is my hypothesis of this talk. And I'm not really a fan of just presenting problems. I feel a lot of talks in IT present a lot of problems and they don't necessarily present solutions. So for me, the entire rest of the talk is just going to be solutions. So I've presented the problem. I'm hoping you agree it's a problem. Every audience so far has, so I'm not going to have everyone raise their hands. I'm just going to give you solutions for the rest of the talk. So let's do this. Okay, I have a plan. I know you're tempted to read, but let's just read it together. It's a two-part plan, okay? So part one, we're going to support the developers and the security team with processes, training, and resources so they confidently can get their jobs done. And then we're going to initiate and maintain culture change. So this plan, we're going to dissect it piece by piece for the next 20-ish minutes. And I'm going to present, I don't know, over 20 ideas of different ways you can do each of these things in your own IT department. So let's go. Okay, so let's talk about processes, right? Okay, so I want processes that work. I don't want processes that are unhelpful. So for instance, if I have a change, someone that is 4 levels above me in my organization, that person does not need to approve it. They don't even know my name, they don't know what my job is, and they have no idea what that change is going to affect. They need to trust me to do my job properly, and as long as my supervisor is cool, we should just be able to do our jobs, right? There shouldn't be a 21-stage approval process for something that takes 30 seconds to do, and it shouldn't take 3 weeks to get approval for something that I do as part of my everyday job. Like if I am not doing something that is dangerous, such as, I don't know, launching a weapon or, shutting down a nuclear reactor. Like if I'm adding changes to the database, it just shouldn't take that long. It's not helpful. So let's have processes that actually get things working efficient and fast so people feel awesome in their jobs. Okay, so the first one is you need an application security team. Between 29 and 40% of breaches are caused by poor security in software, but yet for some reason, that is not the percentage of our security budget that we spend on securing our software. And for me, working in AppSec, I know I'm biased, but I think everyone can agree when they look at the math that that's a problem. So what is an application security team or person? They're the person on your security team that understands how to build secure software. They understand how to review code. They understand how to fix a security bug so they can help the developers fix it instead of just saying, like, go on the internet and search, right? This is the bridge in between the security team and the developers. And if you don't have one, you need one. Like if you work in an enterprise, there's absolutely no excuse for not having something like this. And I realize that I literally work at probably the biggest IT company in the entire planet. So I'm a little biased, but previously I didn't. I've only worked there 6 months, and previously I've worked in a lot smaller shops. And if you don't have a person dedicated towards the security of your software, you better believe it, you're not gonna be making very secure software. Okay, you wanna matrix me into the project team? So every time you start a new software development project, that AppSec team that you just hired, you want to assign one of them to that project. And they're going to be the one point of contact for that team. So if they don't know how to do code review, that's fine, because they're going to go find the person on their team that does know how to do code review or security testing or whatever it is you need. If they don't know the answer, they will brainstorm the answer or research it or find someone to help you. This is called the partnership model. They do this at a lot of places. I've worked at places where they do it, and it's just so awesome. I believe they do this at Netflix. And it's such a pleasure as a software developer to know that you have someone that has their back. I should caution though, you cannot assign that AppSec person to like 25 different projects, because then they become a bottleneck and slow everything down. I suggest 3 projects at a time, because I have so much more work for that AppSec team. Okay, so another thing you want to do is start security earlier. Some people call this pushing left or shifting left. You want to formalize these security activities as part of your system development lifecycle. You can't say, oh, no one did any code review, when you made a project plan and there's no time in it for code review, or there were no tools given to them to do it, right? I have a bunch of other talks and then research papers I've released about this, so I'm not going to dive really deep into my absolute favorite topic. But I really, really feel that if you don't actually formalize these things, you won't get them done. Another thing we can do is we can break security activities into smaller pieces. So let's say you're going to do static code analysis and you work in a place that does DevOps. Well, you can't tell them, could everyone stop for 3 weeks while I do this? That's not going to work. So if the developers are sprinting, us security people need to go get running shoes and learn to sprint too. And part of that is breaking our activities into smaller pieces. So, run the static code analyzer, but only on like a small portion of the code. Or what I like to do is just run it for one specific thing. So I'm just going to look for cross-site scripting. And then in that sprint, we're just going to fix XSS, right? And then the next one, let's look for injection vulnerabilities, et cetera, right? So you can do this. It takes thoughtfulness, but definitely then you'll actually be able to keep up with the developers, because they're moving pretty fast these days. I don't always validate my vulnerability assessment results, but when I do it in production. I know that you're all online, but in your heart, in your living room or wherever it is where you're watching this, if you could just raise your right hand for me and promise, I will never send unvalidated results from an automated tool to a developer and waste their time. Please always validate the results and make sure they're real before you send them. Sending something like that, a false positive to a developer, they don't have all the same tools and background as you do. You're gonna waste days and days of their time chasing down something that's not true, right? You will ruin all of the trust that you just built if you do that. And they're not gonna take any of your results seriously after this. It's really, really, really important to not send false positives. Like, do your absolute best to never, ever, ever send one, and then you will create trust. Trust is so important. Okay, enough of this slide. Okay, now let's talk about training with Mr. T. I don't mean training as in don't click on that link. That is important. I would like it if people clicked on fewer bad links. However, if you write code every day and that's your job, you should have secure coding training, right? If you design apps, you should have threat modeling training and secure design training. I mean security as it applies to the specific work that you do every day. That's what I mean by training. So the first thing in regards to training is you don't need to know everything. This guy, he's so stressed, he's all angry, this big ball of, he's just insecure. That's what's going on there. Because he thinks he needs to know everything, and we don't need that, right? So it's okay to say, you know what, I'd like a refresher on this, or I don't really know security that well for IoT, so could you send me on a course, or I need some time to research this. I don't know the answer, but I will get back to you. All of these things are okay to say, right? It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable and admit we don't know something and that we want training or we want time to look it up. It's okay, it's much better than making something up. In my opinion, we should give security lessons to everyone where we work. Where I work, every new developer gets lessons, and it's awesome, and the lessons are good. And it is my opinion that if you want people to do things a certain way, that you should teach them how to do it. And while we're on that note, give it for free. This is my friend Nicole and I giving security training to a whole bunch of developers earlier this year. And I know that it seems expensive, but it's not really. If you bring everyone in a group together instead of sending everyone off, like it could be a lot cheaper, and it's just so worth it. It's so worth it. Also, someone has their mute button turned off and they're making noise. Thank you. Also, don't stop giving training. So I talked to some people once, and they're like, well, we gave the developers secure code training, and we just did a scan, and we found this and this wrong. I'm like, when did you give it to them? And they said 2012, and it was 2017. At least once a year, they need some sort of security training, because things change, and because we need refreshers, and because new people start and old people leave. And you just absolutely, at least once a year, like, don't stop giving training. Okay, another thing you can do, and this is how I got into security, is some off-color job shadowing, sort of like death by fire. So I ended up going along on a security incident and becoming super obsessed with the idea of security. I was so interested in it. If you have a developer, you can mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Bandana, if you want to mute people, thank you.
Yeah, I'm taking care of it.
Thank you, you're the best. So if you have a developer who's like really, really not good with security, offer to bring them along on an incident so they can see how bad it gets, right? Like having to have an explanation with management or a discussion with management where you explain yourself, that is not a fun conversation. Or if you have someone on your security team who's like, oh, those developers and their crappy code, make them go fix bugs. Like next time you send a vulnerability assessment report to developers, make them go and fix a bunch of them, and then they'll see how hard it is, right? I think sometimes when you walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You can understand their viewpoint and have a lot more empathy for them from now on. Okay, now let's talk about resources. If you don't have the resources you need to get your job done, then of course, so let's talk about actually telling people what you wanted from them. A lot of security teams, and I know because I have been guilty of this, we expect everyone to know what we're thinking. We're like, why would you have not sanitized that input? Didn't you read my mind and know I wanted you to? So what if instead we just told them what we wanted? Like we wrote a secure development guideline or standard. A lot of places I've worked, we have those. And the first one I wrote, it was awful, but I swear the second and third one got a lot better. And the idea is like, if we just tell developers what we actually want from them and give them guidance of how to do it, you're way more likely to get it, right? And then give them training on this. When you write the standard, it needs to be written in developer words. You can't say session ID should be ephemeral. That's vague, and that's a security word. It needs to be written in developer language. You should say session IDs timeout after 5 minutes of no movement, right? And then they time out permanently or have to be replaced every 20 minutes, even if the user's working, right? If you give them really specific guidelines, you'll see apps written with that, right? Especially if you train them on it. Another thing is you have to actually make the guideline accessible and short. I worked somewhere once and I was told we had one and I couldn't find it. And the person's like, it's on the intranet. And then I was like, it's not there. I've looked for like 3 days. And so she's like, oh no, it's there. So then we walked to a developer's desk. I'm like, hey, can you show me the web app security standard? And they're like, we don't have one of those. And she's like, well, that's one person. And I went to like 4 or 5 developers' desks before she's like, okay, you're right. No one knows where it is. And it took her 3 days to figure out where it was. And she's the one that put it there. You can't publish something to the intranet and not tell me when it's there. I know with security, it's our job to keep things a secret. So we're not used to publicizing things. But it's really, really important that you promote what you want from people and you show them where it is and you remind them and you tell them, like make posters of it. Right? Print out copies and then bind them and put them in like open spaces. Like you really, really have to make sure you share this information. You can't keep it to yourself. I feel we should give developers security tools so that, and we give them some training on how to use them safely and then get them to do our jobs for us. Developers want to create secure software. They really do. I was a developer for a really long time, and I wanted my app to be the best app anyone had ever seen. And if someone had shown me how to scan my own app or how to review code, I probably would have done it because I wanted my app to be the best. And if we give them tools and training, it's highly likely that they will do things in the dev phase for us. So by the time it gets to us, it's in much better shape. And fixing bugs earlier is always cheaper and better and faster. So it's a win for everyone. Okay, I know that when bills come in, sometimes there's arguing. I've worked on a lot of security teams where they try to assign the cost of security to different projects, to different groups, and they're always like, oh no, we shouldn't have to pay for this. I know consultants are expensive. I know training costs money usually, but all of it is cheaper than a breach. All of it is, right? Like, I know sometimes there's like a lot of arguments about these things, but it is much better that the security team like takes a hit and you get the things that you actually need rather than something goes very, very wrong. Another resource is the Open Web Application Security Project. We have free tools. All of our software is free. We have free books. And we have these things called the cheat sheets. There is a cheat sheet on almost every topic. You know, you have cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. You're like, oh, I don't know how to fix those. We have a cheat sheet on it. These cheat sheets are just like a summary of how to fix whatever with code samples. This is a free resource, and I really highly suggest that if you are on a budget or you're not on a budget, you just take full advantage. Like we made it so people would use these things, right? So, And another thing you could do is that you could offer to host OWASP in your building. So in my city, a company called Shopify hosts us, which is like so wonderful and generous of them. We really like them. We have a great relationship with them. And they, in turn, recruit people from our meetup to go work for them. So it's a serious win-win for everyone involved, right? And then their employees attend more because it's in their building, and then they learn more about security. So basically everyone wins in this situation, and this is something you could do in your city. So now we're on the second part of the plan. We did our first part. We supported security and dev with resources, tools, people, everything that they need. And now we need to, so culture change would have started at this point, but now what we need to do is make sure it stays put. No more blaming. This baby will not have any of it. Really, truly, if something happens, you have to thank the person for telling you and then go fix it. Right? I mean, unless the person, this is the fourth time they've done something wrong, you need to say, okay, thank you. Now, how do we fix it? It's not Alice's fault. It's not Bob's fault. It's what process wasn't there that allowed this to happen, what safeguard was missing, why didn't they have enough training? If we blame people, you better believe it, they're not going to share information with us in the future. I've learned that the #1 way to ruin all trust you've ever had is by shaming someone after they've confided in you that they've done something wrong, because that's really hard to do. So when someone admits something to us, we cannot rub their noses in it. We, whenever possible, allow people to save face. So if you know who did the thing and then you're having a big meeting with everyone, don't name them. There's absolutely no need for that, right? You know, this happened, the safeguard was missing, and the technician did this, and I need to make sure I train the rest of the technicians so this doesn't happen again. Seriously, this is, I created so much trust in so many places by letting people know they could come to me. And it's like, I'm never going to make fun of you. I'm just going to help you fix it. Even if it's in your personal life, like let's say like an employee's been phished at home and their bank account's been compromised or whatever, spending 20 minutes with them and helping them through that will create trust from then on. And also, like, your employee's going to be a total mess all week, right? If they don't know what to do and they're scared they have malware or whatever, you setting their mind at ease means they are going to be so much more productive the rest of the week. And I think supporting everyone with your security knowledge is really important. Another thing you could do, if possible, is to co-locate your security team right in the middle of IT with everyone else, like right next to the developers. It's really hard to be a jerk to someone if it's to their face compared to email. And if you are at the coffee machine next to someone, you might strike up a conversation. It's a lot more difficult to have harsh relations if you actually know these people personally. This is just a suggestion, but it's worked well for me in the past. Okay, so this is a message to the people that organized this talk and who organize talks everywhere. No, please don't ever book a keynote or a talk ever again that says we're totally screwed. A lot of conferences I go to, the opening and or closing keynote is just like, we're so screwed, let me tell you how screwed we are. Please instead offer solutions. Only accept talks that offer solutions. I know that, you know, when we're looking at quantum computing, for instance, we have a lot of concerns, but talk about what we're doing to try to make it better. And the last thing is, every time you go into the office, you're saying an example, and you can set a good example or a bad example. And if you speak up when someone says something bad to someone, you're saying, like, you're laying down the law that that's not allowed, that you're not going to put up with that, right? And whether it be like sexism or racism or homophobia that you're defending, or it's just, you're not allowed to trash talk the other teams in front of me, right? Like, you're not allowed saying those bad things about those people. Like, if you see someone on the security team and they're like, you know, all those developers, they don't know anything about security, blah, blah, blah. And you talk to them and you say, well, you know what, if they don't know, that's our fault. We're the security team. It's our job to teach them. If you really think that, then you need to book meetings with them and train them. I know that it sounds really cheesy, but when you do things like that, people will look up to you. because everyone wants to do the right thing, but not everyone always feels strong enough. And it's my belief, quite frankly, that you can be setting a good example is worth every amount of courage that you put into it. And with that, I'm going to conclude. So application security, it's kind of hard. IT is hard. It's a difficult job. That's why we get paid pretty well for it. But if we can put our insecurities aside and actually work together, allow ourselves to be slightly vulnerable occasionally if we have to be, we're all going to do a much better job. And I think it's worth it. So I'm going to repeat the plan for you one time, and then I have one slide after this, and then it's question time. Because I really want you to remember all of this. We are going to support our developers, our security team, and all of IT with processes and training and resources so that they confidently get their jobs done. And then we're going to initiate and maintain culture change. And now, watchers, listeners, I have a call to action. This has to start somewhere, and I feel that it should start with you. I'm really hoping that you take one of these ideas from my talk today and actually do it. I've done all of the things in my list and had really good results with each one. And then I know people who have done them as well, because I didn't want to just tell you my personal experience. I talked to many, many, many different IT professionals from around the world to ask about all of these ideas to make sure it wasn't just like a fluke. I'd really like to ask you to set a higher standard for yourself from now on, if you can, and ask you to be brave. And with that, I would like to thank you for your time and attention today. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions?
Oops. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
It's like a loop.
Yeah. I don't know how to, there we go.
Perfect.
Hi. Does anyone have any questions for me? If you're shy, that's okay. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn and all of those things. If you just look up Tanya Janca or She Hacks Purple, that's me. And I'd be happy to answer your question one-on-one if you're a little bit shy. I think we might be done, and I think it might be time for the WIA people to say goodbye. Thank you for having me very much.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
I would just share my screen and
Perfect.
share some information about WIA before we close off. Thanks to both of the speakers for the amazing information. For the women, we will be sharing the recording so that more women can be part of it and it can be informative for them. They can change the way development works, and they can help developers getting more information about security.
Also, Vandy, I want to add, I guess anyone here next time, feel free to send Vandy any of your talks you want to give. It's a monthly thing, and I'm very glad Vandy started again. And thank you both, Alka and Tanya.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, ladies.
And I guess to sum it up, I really think we got two great talks, just saying, because I'm very, very proud we a chair. Essentially, be curious about learning, be willing and courageous about giving trainings and representing all of the teams in a positive leadership manner, as Tanya pointed out. So, and both of your talks together were, again, an excellent contribution to AppSec, OWASP, BUIA, InfoSec Girls, all of the above. And thanks so much. And again, thanks again, Vandy, for organizing it.
Thank you. So you can actually reach out to us if you have any questions about women in AppSec community or application security, or you want to give a session. if you have any questions about the talks that have happened today, I will be sharing the speakers slides, or Tanya would be posting, and I would share it further, and same goes with Alka. We will share it with all of you, and we will also be sharing the recording. You can be part of the VIA member list. I've just shared the details here, so that you can be get all the news that we shared, all the sessions, local meetups, uh, or all the global sessions that we conduct, or the trainings we conduct. So this is one of the training that we did in Nalcon, Goa this year. It was a hands-on session for women in security. It was 1 day full session, sharing information about what OWASP Top 10 is all about, what major vulnerabilities in application security contribute to. So the demos, hands-on session was there with Martin. And then this was one of the meetups that have happened in US at a Microsoft reactor space, and all thanks to Microsoft providing the space. And we have two amazing leaders here in the picture, Zoe and Jessica. And this is one of the meetups that have happened in the Bangalore. And there was one session which we had in AppSec Europe this year, and that was also an amazing session wherein we had amazing women leaders participating, sharing their knowledge and how we can grow the women community at a global level. So that was really amazing. So I would say thank you so much to the speakers, to all the viewers, and the people who participated in the today's session. Feel free to drop us a note. We are on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. So just feel free to reach out to us for any queries, questions, or feedback.
Thank you, Vandana. It was great to be part of it.
Thank you. I will just be stopping the broadcast now. If you have any question, you can ask now.